Assalamu alaikum everyone. First of all, thank you, Mr. Atir, for taking out time for this webinar. And I welcome all Pasha members in this webinar. मेरी आतिर भाई से थोड़े अर्सा पहले बात हुई तो आई वॉज वेरी मच सरप्राइज कि इनका जो व्यू है सर्विसेज इंडस्ट्री को लेके एंड द फ्यूचर ऑफ सर्विसेज जो ये देख रहे हैं। तो आई वॉज वेरी मच सरप्राइज कि इनका जो व्यू है वो काफ़ी डिफरेंट है जो हम लोग पाकिस्तान में बैठ के जिस तरह एनालाइज कर रहे हैं और जो हमारी अपनी एनालिसिस हैं जो एक्सपेक्टेशन आई थिंक दे आर वेरी डिफरेंट फ्रॉम हिज परस्पेक्टिव। सो मिस्टर आतिर इज को फाउंडर ऑफ विक्सल एंड अ सीजन एंटरप्रेन्योर। और ये बड़े अरसे से सर्विसेज बेस्ड कंपनीज को इंक्यूबेट भी कर रहे हैं। ये फॉर्मल इंट्रोडक्शन तो अपना खुद करते हैं। आई हैंड ओवर द स्टेज टू मिस्टर आतिर। सो मिस्टर आतिर, प्लीज फॉर्मली इंट्रोड्यूस योर सेल्फ एंड share your thoughts regarding the services future of services industry. Thank you.
Sure thing, Usman. Thank you very much for the kind introduction and Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So I think I'll quickly start with sharing a little bit about my background. So I am from Pakistan, originally from Lahore, but I have been in the US for about 26 years at this point. My career started hardcore in engineering, very deep and deep tech, designing microprocessors. I used to work for AMD and then Intel. And then I always wanted to be a teacher, so that passion led me to pursue a PhD and actually become a adjunct faculty member at UT Austin, which again is a university focused primarily on hardware. So that's kind of where my career started. But it was during that time, around 13 years ago, that I started getting interested in entrepreneurship and started my first company, Flux7. We founded it in 2013 and Alhamdulillah had a very good run with it for 6 years and then ended up exiting it to NTT Data, which is a global 100 out of Japan. They actually purchased our company in the December 2019, maybe 30 days before COVID news started appearing in the world. So the timing could not have been better. Uh, but one thing that I think is important about the Flux7 journey that I would like to share is that we started as a SaaS company, but the market forces led us to believe that the market needed more the expertise than more tools. And that led us to convert it into a services organization. The uh, and then the rest is history, as they would proverbially say. We built the company almost 50% year-over-year growth over 6 years, which compounded to a pretty sizable number. Then the outcome, the delivery, the multiples at the time of exit, everything really worked out well. And what that really led us to believe as a team was that services or technology services is a highly underrated business. The goal of what technology services is really providing is what leads to the adoption of the tool. So there is the creation of the tool and there is the actual service that gets the tool used. And they're two very different things. And majority of the technology industry kind of looks up to the product and looks down upon services. And with that belief and a kind of frustration, for the lack of a better word, is what led to the founding of Vixul in 2022. So Vixul was the world's first services for accelerator, a startup accelerator that is focused on services rather than product, which is there's about 1,000 accelerators across the world that focus on products. So that's the ratio and the tide that we were going against. The second underlying aspect of this was that services can be built differently, which is why we felt that a startup accelerator was needed because most services companies, and I'll speak to it a lot in detail in a few slides, fall into the trap of what I would say staffing companies, where they are just providing people and billing by the hour. And the language of a staffing company becomes like, well, we have 5 people deployed here, 4 people working there. That's not the business where you really are providing a solution. The only difference is that it's a bespoke solution rather than a rinse and repeat model like a SaaS service. And I think that distinction is really important to understand, and you will see me talk about it over and over again. The difference between staffing and services and understanding the providing a bespoke. So there's the I have a one solution that everyone needs, a rinse and repeat model, a bespoke solution with an outcome. And the third is I provide people, you can use them however you feel like it. And they're very, very different businesses fundamentally in terms of economic models, the way you scale, the way you build equity. And that is what led us to build Vixul because we felt that the world was mostly thinking about staffing and rinse and repeat, but not about the idea of creating bespoke technical solutions. So that was the fundamental behind Vixul. AI created a very nice tailwind behind Vixul with the idea, and two things in the world basically have changed. And I would say it's safe to say that the first trend started appearing maybe in November of 2025. So we are not even 6 months into the first change. And the second one is less than 60 days old. I would say most of the activity has really started in the month of May. So I would say 30 days is probably a good timeline on the trend to the right. And it's incredibly so, Usman, you said when we talked, my view was different. The trend too was not even in that conversation. Since even you and I have talked, the world has changed, I think, one more time from a services perspective. But all of this really is underlying what I said about when we started Vixel. None of that has changed fundamentally. What has changed here is really we are getting more and more validation to that thesis. So, what exactly is it? Let me kind of break this down one by one, and then we'll actually take a pause to see if there's any questions or comments, because I think this is the most important slide of the entire presentation. So, the two trends that the world is starting to see is one, and I'll explain this in how this has emerged. The idea of vibe coding and being able to create solutions easily, while it has concept that people can write their own software, anybody can write software. There is an underlying uh, current that is being missed by in a lot of that conversation, which is that people have all of a sudden realized the importance of custom solutions, custom software solutions. So if you do look up some statistics, you will actually find that CRMs is the number one tool that is being vibe coded right now in the business world. People are basically recognizing that nobody ever loved Salesforce, or for that matter, even HubSpot. People were using those tools because there was no choice. And that is how those tools were being used. All of a sudden, given the choice to build something that exactly fits their need, uh, uh, people are taking that bite. And what's also coming through from not too far distant behind that is that people are recognizing that they are bespoke is become the keyword today. So basically, if I draw a contrast from today to say 10 years ago, the difference was that uh, 10 years ago, rinse and repeat was the word. Build something that you can reuse again and again and again, because build was an expensive part, and reuse was where you made all your money. And that was the SaaS model. The recognition of the build is no longer the expensive part is leading to customers thinking, well, why can't we have a tool that meets exactly our needs? Why do I have to use Salesforce? I'm in the construction industry. My CRM needs to look very different from a standard SaaS CRM. Why should I use HubSpot? Why should I use this? I should be having a CRM where I name my stages and I set my parameters according to my business process. So that I think is a very fundamental trend that's shifting, and there's actually a lot of conversation if you Google it up around like this whole concept of the this paradox from 100 years ago. All of a sudden, that has popped up that when the cost of something goes down, its use become. Most people think that it's kind of a tax with it, but what actually happens is when the cost goes down, brand new uses start to pop up that nobody had ever thought of before. And that is what we are seeing firsthand in across the portfolio and across the industry. And the conversation is still very early, so you almost have to go looking for this information because it's very early, less than 200 days old, this entire trend in the market. The second part that's happening that's making services so bespoke has become more important to the customers than anyone had ever realized. That's first. The second part that is happening is that AI is enabling services that were creating these bespoke solutions, not selling by the hour. if they are thinking about themselves as a solution provider and not a labor provider, it's the margins have gone up significantly because the cost to deliver something has gone down. As again, billing by the hour, billing, selling labor, it's not helping, but where you're providing bespoke solutions, it's actually pushed the margins up quite a bit. The standard margins from 30 to 30% have jumped to like 70% right now in true services companies. And the other part that's really interesting is that the world is not kind of oblivious to this reality. What's actually starting to happen is that the capital markets are shifting and the repricing of services, businesses has started to already take place. Now, so this is all stuff that has been bubbling up in the last 6 months that all of a sudden demand is going to go higher. There is a chance to build services companies with software-like economics, and the market is starting to price them higher. But now let's move to the right side of this. The validation of this has actually started uh, again in the last few months itself. The first part that's really important is that AI is a major transformation. People are starting to realize that the impact of this is going to be akin, if not bigger, than digital transformation that started about 20 years ago. And one of the things that was done in the digital transformation area also was that there was a lot of bespoke services had to be done. There was a lot of consulting that had to be done because just building a tool does not get a business from digital. This is the same thing that's cycle that's happening again. And these trends are not short-lived. Digital transformation, even up until 2018, 2019, people were still talking about digital transformation. Even today, people are still talking about it. And it's been going on for almost 2 decades. So this is going to be a massive seismic shift that will run for a very long time with a lot of different areas being pulled into it. And every kind of services company is going to get pulled into it, whether that's IT services, whether that's software development, whether that's uh, SAP work, whether that's ERP integrations. They're all basically going to be a part of the cycle, similar to uh, practically our entire industry got created in the last 20 years through the digital transformation flag. And this flag is, if nothing else, bigger and coming at a much faster pace. So these two trends have actually completely shifted the economics, where the question has now become, well, people who have never done services are trying to understand how to do services, because the recognition is that there is a ton more money flowing on this side over because of this, and these companies have become for the first time worthy of venture investments to the left. So that's the two mega trends that are actually changing the industry. So hence my title of my talk, right? You don't need to, because as services founders, we almost always told that to build equity, you have to be a SaaS company. And I think that economic model has completely shifted. So I will actually take a pause because I think this is a lot unloaded in just one slide. Any questions, comments so far?
So if anyone has any questions, they can just raise their hands and we can share the stage with you. Otherwise, Mr. Atir can continue and finish, and then we can have a QA session at the end.
I think we can just go for that then, and we'll deal with the questions at the end. So, uh, and again, there's theory and there's actual flight of capital that the market is starting to see. So some of the largest investment firms in the world and services companies in the world are starting to talk about these trends that we just discussed. I think the most seminal of this work was published in February by Sequoia. The title of the blog was "Services: The New Software." The Sequoia thesis kind of pegged that there's going to be about 6 trillion, I think is what they said, $6 trillion is going to flow into services over the next few years. Y Combinator uh, actually started talking about this back in January, where they started accepting services companies into the accelerator. Uh, in fact, as timely as it could be, about 12 hours ago, they actually published a very interesting video on their blog, which is all talking about this exact concept of services versus product. And I guess it's a very funny for me in some ways to see, or a very surreal moment for me to see this, because that's what we were talking about at Vixul for many years, trying to make that point about services is a very good business. And now it's like everyone's singing the same tune and talking about it. Emergence Capital actually published just 6 days ago some data on their website that they have, to date, have actually invested about $400 million in services companies. And Accenture, which is a services giant, is basically posting massive increases. Look at the $6 billion basically booked in just services bookings. So the demand is very real, very much accelerating with what is actually happening. So what this is doing for our businesses in services is that this is actually changing and opening up new options that have never been there before. Very high margins, so you can build businesses that can actually grow, and you have a lot more disposable income to spend on things like marketing and sales to grow a lot faster. So much higher margins means more money to spare. If instead of taking that money home, you are actually putting that back into the business, you can actually grow and scale the businesses faster. Uh, Real funding is become available, and I don't know if the word real is even a great word here, but what's really changing is much easier funding, I think, is probably a better way to do it, which is if the company is uh, able to make the right case for that they are going to ride one of these two or both of these waves together that I talked about. There is a lot more opportunity available. Millions and literally billions are flowing into this second bucket. I think one statistics that not on my slide, but again, less than 30-day-old news, if you haven't heard yet, is that OpenAI started a services company by the name of Deployment Company. And they have raised money from Goldman Sachs and some of the other VCs. They raised $4 billion to put into the services company at an 11 billion valuation, which is just insane in a services world. For somebody to have raised pre-revenue raised $4 billion upfront. And the second came about 2 days after, I think, Anthropic announced that they have raised 1.5 billion to build their own services wing that is going to be working inside of Anthropic. And then both of these have not just raised money to build the companies, they have actually started buying services companies. So within 1 week of raising that money, OpenAI ended up buying Tomorrow, and Anthropic ended up buying a company called Fractional AI. And both those acquisitions have, if nothing else, created a frenzy in the market where there is going to be a lot of services acquisitions that will be happening over the next 12 to 18 months. So the opportunity is very real, basically, and the equity that is being built is becoming very durable. And in fact, I think it's one of those things where you are finding yourself in a position where all of a sudden, and this is just like I said, it's a kind of a surreal moment where there is a lot more being said about, well, why services is actually a better business than SaaS ever was, because services was always providing the bespoke outcome that the customer always wanted. SaaS was just trying to build one shoe size and fit it on everyone's shoe. So the fundamental, in fact, there's a really good, if you're interested in that particular segment of this conversation, there's an excellent paper I can reference, which, in fact, talked about. There's a lawyer who did a comparison of a typical services contract and a typical SaaS contract a couple of months ago. It's one of the major law firms in the country, and how they kind of were showing why the customer is far more better off buying a service than buying a SaaS product, because the service company takes way more responsibility. I think my classic analogy that I've been using is, this is coming from standard business school case studies, that oftentimes if you have studied sales or marketing, you will actually find that people talk about this idea of no customer ever wanted a hammer. All they wanted is a hole in the wall so that they can hang a picture. And selling them a hammer was never the solution. The solution always was, I want a picture hung. And the question is, what do you want to sell to the customer? A customer is looking to get a picture hung. You can either say a service, we are a service that will come in and hang your picture straight, right way, just the wall where you want it at the right height, because we have the right tools, the right expertise. We'll come and hang the picture. Flip it on its head and you say, well, you have to figure out how to hang the picture, where to hang the picture, but I can sell you the three tools that you need. You're going to need a nail, a hammer, and a balance that you can go home and service. As a customer, which one gets the job done? One is, what you need is a picture hung. hammers. So that is kind of the big transformative shift in the market mindset. So, but I think all of this has a really important aspect to it, which is this is not going to be available to every company who calls themselves a service. Services companies will have to change their way of thinking also to capture this change in the world and kind of become what the different names people are using. I think one of my favorites is so there is AI first services. That's what Y Combinator is calling it. Sequoia and Andreessen Horowitz, two of the largest VC firms in the world, service as a software. And then Emergence Capital, the one that is farthest ahead in the game, that has already invested about 400 million in this services business, they are calling it ANS or AI native services. And you can really call it whatever you want, but here's what it really means. What it really means is that the traditional services was the idea was it's about headcount. People were talking about, well, to scale the company, we need more people. The billing was hourly, capabilities were mostly generic in that you will accept nearly any project that brings money. Pipelines were really focused on referrals. Customization was a bad thing. You were trying to avoid customization wherever possible. And you were typically operating at 25 to 40% gross margins. Even with the offshore leverage, most companies in Pakistan, I know, cannot achieve 50%. They're having a hard time getting 40, 50%. And the world that's shifted to is that in the AI native world, companies have to think like bespoke providers of solutions. It's about hanging the picture. It's not about I'll give you a person to hang the picture. It's about okay, we'll for $50 I'll come and hang the picture and I'll figure everything out. You don't have to think about any of the other issues. That's the mindset. So basically, you have the most of these are pricings are getting tied to, like I said, $50, I'll hang your picture. It's not $15 an hour, and I'll come in based on your risk, figure out what needs to be done. It's about putting some skin in the game, changing your mindset, and stop being afraid of what about if the customer asks for too much. You have to put those guardrails in place, and you have to do the hard work of understanding what outcome you're providing and what are the risks associated so you can flag them upfront. The mindset has to shift. The second is to develop deeper specializations because that is how you become good at something and can solve a problem. Otherwise, you're always afraid to take the risk and say, I will solve the problem. The way you become comfortable by solve with the first bullet, you only become comfortable if you're doing similar projects. You don't have to be vertical specialization, but you have to be deep in something so that you understand it better than the customer does on what they're looking for. Only then can you actually give them a price with comfort, which is tied to their outcome, because you understand why they're going to succeed or fail. You have simplification of the process using AI. Basically, a bigger version of the third bullet really is become AI native yourself, which is improve your processes, simplify things. I'll show you a demo here in a second of what it could look like. But the idea really is that we have to become the our companies as services companies almost have to become the showcases of the best users of AI, everything on paper when expecting our customers to use AI. And uh, lastly, customization, which was one of the biggest problems with services businesses, has actually now become a leverage because you can build something that is tied to the need of the customer. The cost is not crazy anymore of doing something like that. All of a sudden, it has become feasible to build a custom solution for what something never made sense to the customer. And the idea really is, and I think this ties back to bullet one and bullet five here on this side, outcome and quality pricing and thinking about your specialization and improving your own processes, you can actually turn customization into a leverage and create a real win-win where the customer gets the picture hung and you still make a decent amount of money because you have understood a very specific niche at a very deep level and created AI processes of your own internal processes as well. And again, like I said, it's a few years ago when we were talking about all this, it was all fairy tales. But now this has become so real actually that I'm giving you actual examples of companies that are doing this and are hitting these outcomes, and at that point getting acquired or getting funded at very, very high multiples. So let's actually go through. a quick demo just to kind of lay out the picture. So this is a hypothetical services company. Axon Labs is not a real company. At Vixul, we are not in the business, we are in the business of creating companies. So this is more of a demonstration of what an AI native company looks like. But let's just actually break this down into the idea of, well, what does a services company look like at the highest level? The company has to have reach through which it can actually be telling people about its existence. This comes to many different angles, and I won't bore you with every single detail. There's way too much detail in Axon Labs' hypothetical framework, but different methods through which you can increase your reach and get to people, starting from referrals, where everyone's playing in our experience, but targeted outbound content, community, things that you can do. Then there is let's just say you do get into a conversation with the customer, the question, then the discovery begins. The Through the discovery, you understand what they're really looking for. The qualification process begins. And I think this is where, and I'll actually come back and touch on every single one of these boxes with an AI native lens on it. Right now, I'm just kind of showing you just the lay of the land. So the qualification process is where once you have a customer, you have done some discovery, you need to decide what and how the customer is looking for, and if they are a right customer or not, leading to discovery calls, things like creating a proposal, and then if everything works out, actually signing, then delivery, and then approval. And then lastly, when you finish the loop, once you're done with the delivery of the project, learning from that project and improving your own processes. That's like I said, a very high level description of what a services company looks like. They try to spread the word, they try to do some discovery, they try to qualify the lead, they create the proposal, get the agreement, deliver, learn from the process, and keeps getting better. So far, we haven't touched really anything AI native, but now let's go at it from the same angle, go at the same thing, but purely from an AI native lens. I'll give you some examples. Again, I'll not bore you by clicking on every one of these boxes, but at the highest level, the AI native companies are touching every one of these things, heavily leveraging AI. I think one of the most powerful examples starts right here. Outbound was always a bad word because basically customers are tired. Nobody wants to respond to outbound. Still a bad word, except one thing that has always worked about outbound is when you're able to do heavy research. The best companies today are not sending 1,000 emails, they're sending 5 emails every day. But every one of those emails is such a high quality that they're hearing back from one of those 5 people. And how they are doing that research on 5 companies is through using the use of agents. People are building internal tools, using tools like they're building tools on top of things like Clay, things like using softwares like Instantly, the whole body of knowledge that has been developed around how do you do AI-based reach, where you're doing much more higher quality. In fact, LinkedIn content, I think, is more bespoke at the moment. What's more interesting has become is how targeted and specific can you be that you understand the customer, not just who they are, but also what they are doing today. Did they just post a job today somewhere? Did they just have a LinkedIn post that you should be referencing in your outbound message? It's just not possible for a human being to be that specific. But the idea is you spend fewer, you're actually sending less messages because AI is filtering out and saying these 990 people match your profile, but they're not in the market right now because there is no signal for them. But these 5 people just showed up to a conference because I saw a picture of them from their LinkedIn post. They also posted a job 3 days ago that looks like they're looking for somebody who's doing software development. And there is a post from them in this other community in Twitter where they have asked people for something. They posted a comment there. Now is the time to strike. Let's send a solid email to them to see if we can catch stuff that's practically impossible without AI to even monitor all these sources at the same time. But that's what AI first companies are doing at the reach level. Discovery is one I think that is really interesting because let's just click on this. And I want to actually, so this is the website of Axon Labs, again, a hypothetical company. But the idea is look at the way this website looks different. It's not saying we do everything, it's actually being very specific. Here's what we do. Here's the problem we solve, and we are going to get you the insights. Here's what we believe we can create in terms of results. This is what it's going to take for you to buy from us. And if you are ready, click here and start a free assessment. And now what the customer is seeing is they haven't actually talked to a person yet, but this is the value of depth and deep understanding that you can actually be asking them. This is not just generic questions we are asking, how many people you have, where is your company based. This is about, let's just co-design. So what I'm gonna actually use is just demo answers over here to save some time. But the idea is that the customer is actually going through a multiple choice, highly curated discovery process without talking to a human. This is not just saving you time. This is actually giving the customer the time to go back and change their answers as many times as they like, which is not possible on a human call. Customers actually get locked in. In fact, you'll be surprised how much aversion there is that people don't want to have a call, because it's not that they don't like to talk to people. The reason they don't want to have a call is because they are not in their minds clear on what they need, and they don't want to look stupid in front of another human being. People just uh, prefer not to be judged. And some giving them a tool like this for discovery just changes the whole perspective. And all this is doing is, this is not giving them a proposal. This is just giving them a, hey, based on what you said, we believe this is first of all is doable. This project looks feasible. This is what you need to do. And this is giving customers something for free, which is, this is what, Mr. Customer, this is what you need. We believe this is what you need, very high level. You have two choices. You can either download this PDF and never come back to us again, or you can submit this for an assessment by one of our engineers. And that is how the customer self takes themselves into the qualification process. Basically, I think what I'm trying to do is not tell you do this. What I'm really trying to tell you is think very creatively. Just like you think for your customers very creatively, it's time to think for yourself very creatively. What can be done in your context creatively to give the customer more opportunity? Customers could learn more on your blogs, they could review your case studies, they can actually understand what they're really looking for, they can take the self-assessment we just did through that. Then your sales team can go and, or in most cases, you are the sales team as founders, just go do some pre-qualification, actually understand what the customer is doing, then jump on a call where you actually know based on what the customer has already said on what is needed. You work with them, and again, we don't have the time to go through every one of these boxes, but I think just one more that I will click on, right? And this is again, keep my thought in mind. Think for yourself creatively, just like you think for your customers. Uh, a proposal does not have to be the old school Word document or a PDF document, right? A proposal can be a living and breathing document where a customer can ask it questions, it can interact with it, it can export it directly. It could be an MCP server that they can pull straight into their cloud and actually ask questions about the proposal. Why are we are telling everyone again, as services companies in the world, to be modernized, but we are still sending our proposals as PDF and Word documents. And but the idea is, so this is what a dynamic proposal looks like, an AI native proposal looks like. Customer has the option to interact with it. The customer can flag things that they don't like. The customers can see the pricing right there transparently. They can flag concerns. They can suggest changes on the proposal right there itself, and either approve it or approve with notes or request changes based on what they just said. And what this does is this proposal is getting created practically instantly from the sales calls, transcripts, and some input from your engineers. And it actually gives the customer a much clearer view and a system to interact with the customer, through which they can actually adjust what they're looking for. I think I will not get into the delivery, but rather I will say something really important, which is a lot of the services companies, when they're thinking AI, all they're thinking about is, let's just use Cloud Code to all my engineers. The part that they're missing is delivery is a very small part of their business. They may think this is where the business is. The business is all up here to get them to delivery. And this is where a lot more creativity needs to go. Yes, Cloud Code helps. Yes, creating better skills.md files in Cloud helps, but that's not where the real magic is and the real opportunities are. Uh, again, won't bore you guys with that, but the idea is to create something. Let's just click on one thing over here. The idea is to, again, an AI native firm looks like this, right? The customer is able to see on a day-to-day basis, almost real time, what activity is happening, what is requires their approval, what is needed of them so that they can review and approve or accept the change, accept a pull request, depending on what granularity you're working in, is really showing them a full dashboard of as the delivery is progressing, what is actually happening within their engagement. Number one failure mode on uh, services engagements, by the way, is customer not knowing what's happening and at the end getting a surprise, whether it's money, whether it's the deliverable. And that's what can be broken with AI. It's possible to break that and create something where the customer is able to be a part of the engagement, not just something that they do at the end. And I guess I'll again not bore you guys, but just go to this very last one and just kind of point out that the idea is that the engagement doesn't just finish at delivering something. You should leave statistics and analytics collection in there that can create more ideas for customer. Ideally, your product or the bespoke solution that you have delivered itself should give the customer ideas using analytics and, hey, you're not seeing the usage we were expecting. More people are clicking here than over there. Maybe it's time to reach back out to Axon Labs and talk about a next engagement where they can come back and help you fix A, B, and C because this is where the problem is. Put some of those expertise right, even if the customer doesn't pay for that piece, put it right in the middle of the customer's mind. And with in with Claude these days, some of this stuff is not as challenging. The idea that something like this could be done has always been there. Personally, I have been thinking about this for 15 years. But the reality is that now it's possible, and that is what has changed. And there is a real prize for making it possible because before this, if you did something like this, my company Flux7 was kind of like this 10 years ago. Yes, we were unique. Yes, it was interesting. We confused more people sometimes because we were very different from the rest of the world because the rest of the world didn't understand why we were doing things the way we were doing it. Now it's the reality 10 years later. Everyone wants you to do it. So now is the opportunity to strike. So essentially, and I think I'm going to pick up pace here with just a couple of slides to finish off and leave 15 minutes for questions. But the idea is that this platform that we build within the company of our own companies and become a service as a software, that is a new moat that we create. And this requires us to think differently. And that is the opportunity also. So rather than building the traditional mindset of we have a services company and we got to build a SaaS, build your own platform because that's what's being valued in the new world order. And what can tell you that you are becoming an AI first services company, most telltale is the gross margin. When that starts to hit 70, that means you're really there. More and more work is getting executed. Yeah, AI is being used across the revenue cycle, not just Claude MD inside of Claude. The future proof is really, I think this number four is probably the most important litmus test of our services companies that you can ask yourself today, which is that if Claude launches Opus 5 tomorrow and it's 10 times better, is your revenue going to go up or is your revenue going to go down? Because if you are situated the right way, you should benefit from the improvement on the foundation models. And if you're situated the wrong way, you are actually going to lose every time they will get better. And that's the shift that needs to be made. And the window of these changes are not that long. So one reason I actually requested Usman, in fact, when we were talking, and we should do this conversation because I think the services economy is going to change. It's the single biggest opportunity, but also the single biggest threat to the services market. Things that are literally dying in front of us, staff augmentation, hourly billing, relationship-only sales models, that's what's actually dying. And there's a window to not just fix for survival, but fix for a higher opportunity. So what would I do if I was in your space today? I guess today's Tuesday, so say by next week or tomorrow. First things first, try to figure out how are you going to narrow your focus? How are you going to position yourself better? Second is to start thinking about how you're going to reprice what is your outcome. And third is to start thinking about what exactly are these narrow solutions that you can create. Again, this is not SaaS solutions, very big difference. What you saw, creating custom bespoke solutions, but thinking like a solution provider, not a labor provider. That's the one thing I want you to take away. And I guess with that, just some ideas for a question. And this is my last slide, so I'll pause right here. Usman, back to you.
Gee, thank you, Mr. Atif, for sharing so much practical insights. I think it's a very a huge information to absorb in one session, but we will try to open floor for the question and see how it goes. So, Mr. Heather, you can start.
Yeah, thank you for letting me speak. First of all, Atir, it was a wonderful session, and I really liked the demo approach that you gave us. I'm gonna write my demos in that way in the future too. So my question for today is, I think, very narrow scoped and maybe out of scope of this presentation. I agree with everything that you said, but how do I get leads easily? And the biggest problem right now for our company, we are working on the same model that we are creating bespoke solutions for all our clients. But how do we get leads easily? If you can guide on that.
Well, let me start by saying something, Heather, that you're not going to like. There's nothing easy about getting leads. There's no easy in that journey. Even the largest companies in the world have the exact same problem. If you open up Accenture's uh, uh, report, the 10K filing that they do to the SEC, Security Exchange Commission, every year, by law, they are required to. Even they say that this is their biggest problem. So first of all is recognition that you're not alone. That's everybody. There is no such thing as anyone has it easy. Now, coming back to what is the hard way of doing it, because I'm already telling you there is no easy way of doing it. Step one about this is to recognize that it is going to take some effort and investment. So, if I may go back up here, uh, the effort and investment first needs to go. And again, I don't even know anything about your company, so my apologies if I'm kind of underrating your current efforts. But what I want to push back on is 90% of the companies that we come across in services have a real hard time doing number one, are almost always really weak in this because there is this concept of, well, if we do more, we can get more customers. That is actually a counter thesis to how marketing particularly actually works. So when you're selling by referrals, it's okay, right? Because what they are saying is at the end of the day, winning a services engagement is all about building trust. And one way to build trust is referrals because you borrow trust. Somebody else who trusts you, they'll introduces you to somebody else. What that then generally becomes is getting more leads is an exercise in trust building. How do you build trust with a lot of people? Because if there were 10,000 people in the world that trusted you, your leads are going to come in easier. And if you have only 50 people who trust you, it's going to be a smaller network. So it's a size. It comes out to how do you build trust. Now, there's many different methods to do it. I would hate to venture into even one and say, but I'll give you a list of a few things to think about. In fact, I think my demo actually had a few of them out there. But the way you build the trust is, I'll give you some ideas, right? So first of all, before you do any distribution, which is let's just tell everyone that we exist, you need to clean up your story. That's the first problem. Most of the companies, and if I may, at the expense of sounding a bit too condescending, 90%, if not 99% of the companies that we come across at Vixul, we talk to them all the time. The problem is in the first stage where their story is just, you can't even explain in one or two lines what you do. And if that line ends up in something that is literally 1 million other people are saying, it's not useful. Like if the answer is we help product development, or we develop or do product development, or we do IT services, that's like saying I speak Urdu and English. Like a billion people in the world who can say that. There's no value in that. What is expected of you these days and becoming more and more important is to narrow your story down where you can actually say, Uh, if you remember that demo I showed you with Exxon Lab, right? Like we do X for customer Y, which provides benefit Z. That's how you should be able to talk. And that is actually the secret that many people are missing, in my opinion, which is that you have to actually start there. Then there's the distribution, which is where all of us think lead generation is, but it's not there. It's actually in the fixing up your story first. I can tell the wrong message to a billion people and get nothing out of it and think that everyone else is lying, that their leads are coming in and mine is not. But the real problem is that I'm just telling the wrong story. So first fixing the story is the most important part. Then comes the distribution problem. Distribution is actually a very systematic method. It's actually more engineering than marketing, which is like, well, I these days you have to have a website in 2026. You have to have a LinkedIn presence. You cannot not have a LinkedIn presence. Once you know who your customer is, you need to know which events they attend, and you should be at those events. That's one way to build trust. Meet them in person, show up to the event. They say your face 3 times, they will remember you. Trust starts to getting built. You can find where once you know who your customer is, figure out what communities they are a part of. You should be at that community, at those community events. You should be at a part of those Slack channels. You have to, if you can, again, identify your customer and their pain points, creating highly curated outbound is very effective. You just have to do it very curated. Like I said, uh, in a full day, if you send 3 messages, but they're that high quality, you will start hearing back from people. It's when you send generic messages that don't work. So sorry, we could talk for a day and still not be done with this answer, but just wanted to give you a glimpse of how to think about this as an engineering problem rather than there's nothing magical about it. It's just knowing the right message needs to get to the right people. How to get the message out, there's at least a dozen ways of doing it, and for every one of those channels there's a dozen best practices that we can speak to. But getting your story straight is the most important part, if I may leave you with one thing.
Yeah, thank you.
जी। सो इतने बड़े ग्रुप में अगर कोई क्वेश्चन ना हो तो इसका इसके दो मतलब होते हैं, या तो हर एक को हर चीज़ समझ आ गई है या हर एक को कुछ भी समझ नहीं आया। एंड आई होप के फर्स्ट पार्ट ट्रू हो इस
आई
वे में।
होप सो।
सो आई थिंक कि जो आपने एक्शन जो डेमो कंपनी शो की, आई थिंक इट वाज वेरी प्रैक्टिकल। और ये चीज़ें देखने में ना काफ़ी मुश्किल लगती हैं, लेकिन आई कैन अश्योर यू कि जब आप स्टेप बाय स्टेप शुरू करते हैं इस चेंज पे, और एक जो मेजर चेंज है बेसिकली हमारी जैसी सर्विसेज बेस्ड कंपनी में, क्योंकि पाकिस्तान में क्या होता रहा है हिस्टोरिकली हम लोग हमेशा ना इंजीनियरिंग पे फोकस करते रहे हैं, जबकि इंजीनियरिंग और डिलीवरी इज जस्ट वन पार्ट ऑफ द बिग प्रोसेस। अगर यहाँ पे अगर आपकी वो दूसरी स्लाइड थी उसको अगर आप ओपन करें तो उसमें 4-5 स्टेप्स और हैं, एंड जो डिलीवरी है इट इज जस्ट वन पार्ट ऑफ दैट
आई थिंक आप
होल
डेमो की बात कर
प्रोसेस। जी, ये वाला। सो इसमें रीचेबिलिटी है, डिस्कवरी है, फिर आपका क्वालिफिकेशन है, फिर आपका प्रपोजल है, एग्रीमेंट। अब डिलीवरी जो है ना हम लोग हमेशा इस पे फोकस करते रहे हैं, और जो पहले 4 स्टेप्स हैं आई थिंक मेजॉरिटी ऑफ आवर कंपनीज इन पाकिस्तान हैव बीन मिसिंग दोज पार्ट्स, और अब हम सारों को एफर्ट्स करनी पड़ेंगी इन सारी एक्टिविटीज़ पे। और ये आई एम श्योर किस पे टाइम एंड रिसोर्सेज काफ़ी ज़्यादा इन्वॉल्व होंगे, और उसी से सर्वाइवल होगा। उसके बगैर आई डोंट सी एनी सर्वाइवल ऑफ एनी कंपनी। सो लेट्स कंटिन्यू विद द क्वेश्चंस। मिस्टर अहमद, यू कैन आस्क योर क्वेश्चन।
Alaikum ji.
Right.
Thanks for giving me opportunity to ask the question. So my question is obviously the last one which was on your deck. So how does an engagement with Vixul look like? So what is the process and what we can expect from such an engagement?
So I guess I'll try to keep it very brief, and we can always have a conversation offline if needed. But basically, at Vixel, our goal is to build services companies where you can build some real equity and actually take them all the way to an exit. So this one slide, I think, kind of sums it at a very high level, what it looks like. So it's an engagement that starts with us really getting into a partnership together. What that means is Vixel takes a small slice of the equity in the company as a phantom equity, and the company joins the portfolio. So first we really have to interview each other, is the right way to say it. You vet if the Vixel makes sense, model makes sense for you, and vice versa. Then we get into this. The model itself starts with setting some of the foundational elements, as I was saying to earlier, about getting the story straight, getting into the habit of disciplined execution, getting to operate like a real company, which is a real challenge, believe it or not, for most of the companies we take in, is how to turn it into a real company and how they operate with plans and goals and with discipline. That is all done through a boot camp. Second period, we help the company become better at. So go to market is here. Your question tha abhi pipeline ka, that's right here. Then you have the sales aspect, which is a huge issue we have discovered over time. That companies have a sales problem that they don't realize what they. So एक तो ये है कि leads नहीं आ रही, which is what everyone thinks is the issue. There's a second part about are you actually able to close the leads that are coming in, and that's the second milestone. And then the third part is that with this opportunity and some of these investments, once the company is in the right stage, there is a lot of opportunity to raise money at this point. So being able to work with, and we also write our own checks to companies as well. So Vixul invests alongside other investors. The idea is to grow the company. Basically, once you have a fire started, let's put some fuel on the fire.
Got it.
And then the idea is to create the runway to be able to create an exit.
Understood. 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 And what is the duration of that boot camp?
So the boot camp is 90 days, but the entire relationship runs a few years. The boot camp is just the first milestone.
Yeah,
And
obviously, but
the entire journey
that's
takes
the
5
starting
years.
point.
जी जी बिल्कुल. So our boot camp is 90 days. It's very much modeled after Y Combinator on the product side.
Perfect. Perfect. Understood. Thank you.
Sure thing.
And obviously, if someone is interested in, going forward such an engagement, we should get in touch with you via LinkedIn or your website. I do believe your website would have some sort of a
Both
intake
of
form.
those are options, but I'm also going to put my email address in there. So if that's easier for you, LinkedIn, I'm pretty active. Website, we are always listening. If anyone wants to apply to join Vixul, but I've also put in my email. If you guys have any direct questions, you can ask me.
Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure.
So, Murtaza, you can ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you. Thank you so very much, Aater. My question is slightly changing to the conversation. I just wanted to get your opinion on something. So when we're talking of niche areas to get into the services sector, there are certain areas where we start talking of working on, fine-tuning of models and those kind of things. Again, those things might be overtaken with more data and more training by these larger models as well. So do you think that there's any potential working in these areas, specifically if they are targeted towards a particular market or a particular sector?
There is actually, Murtaza. I think so. What's really happening is it's the more generic stuff is getting consumed a lot faster. The second piece of that is also that you have to reach a point where the foundation models are always going to be training on data that's easier to access and easier to available. That's the whole model with the foundation models. So the trick comes in is basically that you are able to find something and build knowledge, deep knowledge in something that is not available to the foundation models. There's that, by the way, there is another aspect that I think is also very important to highlight. Even if everything that you are doing is done by a foundation model, that doesn't actually mean that the customer is. So again, most of us come from that deep engineering mindset, right? So we think that if we can do it, everyone else in the world can do it as well. That's not true at all. Do you really conceive like a doctor who runs a medical practice that does $10 million a year in revenue has the time to sit down with Claude and code for themselves? They're not going to do that, even if the model can build it. What they also are not going to do is that if you start to explain to them what is Node.js and what is that, that is also not going to work. What they want is somebody comes in and pitches like, here's how you can build a solution that will help your practice run better, and we'll build it for you. We'll first understand your practice. We will spend the time to understand what you do, and then from there build something bespoke to you. That's the solution that they're looking for, and they're willing to pay for it. So you don't have to compete against the model in the first place. You can build on the model. That's one answer to your question. And then there is the second moat that you can simply create, which is knowing something that the models don't know. In fact, the two answers are actually the same, if I may say it, because so what the model does not know is, I'll keep using my doctor analogy because it's just easy to understand, right? What the models do not understand is nobody at OpenAI has sat inside a cardiology clinic and tried to really understand what happens on a day-to-day basis. What are the processes? What are the questions patients are actually asking? What is the deep insight that is not written in the books of cardiology? And that is where our moat lies. Now, how do you understand that is by working in a niche where you are just working with cardiologists. If you say I work with everybody, that's never going to happen. But if you work with 10 cardiologists, your 11th cardiologist will, one, you will finish their sentences, and two, you will have the depth of, as they say, calling it unwritten knowledge. You will have unwritten knowledge that the foundation models can never get to because it's unwritten by the definition of it. So that's the way you create the moat.
Thank you so very much for the detailed answer. That helps a lot. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so I would like to invite Ishad Bhai. He's an active member of our startup committee, and he has helped us connect with Mr. Atir and say the closing remarks here.
I think there's one more question.
Uh,
Do we
Yeah.
want to take it?
sure,
Sorry.
sure.
Yes, yes, you can.
I think the question came in chat from Akib. The question is, how do we identify which platforms to invest in now for lead generation as AI has changed the traditional ones? How are you handling that in your process or bootcamp? So, Akib, again, I think this is understanding. I used a very generic word, right? Get your positioning, get your story straight. In fact, by the way, the more formal word of that is positioning, whether you're positioned correctly. I think the platform right now is very dependent on who you are trying to reach. Frankly, it's never been a different answer, but nowadays it's even more important. So, for example, if you are going after smaller startups, your data is going to come from very different sources than if you are going after mid-market. And if you're going after mid-market in the US, we often define it as about 100 million to $1 billion in revenue. If you're going after the enterprise, your data is coming from completely different databases. So one of the nice things that's happening right now is that if you know who your customer is, you can choose the platforms very wisely, targeted to that customer. In fact, in many cases, you can build your own platform. Data sources have become more accessible thanks to AI. You're able to get more data on your own. So the idea really is first know your customer, but let me give you some examples. Clay is coming up in nearly every single conversation as an understanding of the data and enriching the data of the customer. Researching the data and making the list itself, Clay can play a role, Apollo can play a role, but then there's literally a dozen other tools I can name. So what I would probably do is first step, understand who you're trying to reach. Then the second question is which platform is trying to target there. Just like we have this challenge and I'm asking you to niche down, all of those platforms are being advised by their investors. You need to niche down. There is no such thing as HubSpot anymore, which can do anything for everything for everybody. There are platforms like that will create, well, there is Clay, but there is Clay for doctors, Clay for, and people are starting to create those niches where they can be really good at one area. So your job is to find that platform that exactly targets your customer and is the best at it. Uh, a few very actionable tips there that I would do is I would first of all literally ask Claude itself what platforms would you use, but you need to know who you want to target. Otherwise, it's a garbage in, garbage out problem. If you say, how do I reach my customers? It's going to say, go taxi ads. Why not, right? But you need to understand who your customer is first. And then from there, you can answer the question. But deeper conversations about, so what we are seeing is, and again, one of the benefits, alhamdulillah, of having 30 plus companies in the portfolio is we are seeing the ones that are successful, the ones that are not. What's making the difference lies in people who are understanding who their customer is and being creative, using their engineering brain to the problem rather than just saying, okay, who's the platform and let's just use it. Some cases you don't need a platform. What you need is to build something yourself. And that's the right answer. If your customer is so unique, nobody else can get you the data, find it yourself. But actually, I'll finish off with one thing, okay, to answer your question, because it also hits on some of the other question I think Hasnan asked earlier. Heather asked earlier, actually. The go-to-market is these days, especially, it has become much more a data problem than a relationship problem. Who has the best data about their customers, which means who understands their customer and has the ability to collect the best data to attack them at the right time from the right channel. That's what sales and marketing has become nowadays. So it starts with knowing your customer, then it starts with understanding where they are, what signals are they leaving on the internet. In fact, there are people that are going as far as saying that marketing is nothing but signal generation at this point. The whole goal of your website, your LinkedIn, your posts is nowadays to just see who clicks on the like. So now you know this person needs to be added and moved up in your stack. You have more data about that person because they clicked on something. That means now you know a little more about them than the other guy. So if you think of it as an engineering data problem, it's a very different mindset that you need to adapt in this era.
G, ICIL, you can ask your question.
I don't know, we might have lost them.
म्यूट हुए हैं ICIL.
इस वक्त करना है उसके लिए
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम आतिर दिस इज यासिर आई थिंक आपसे कुछ देर पहले we spoke some time back also I have this brand called Botai which is a agentic solution this was some time back there from now we've done a lot कुछ customers भी हमने tie up कर लिए हैं and now we're trying to again trying to see how we can enter the North American market or the US market. So more as a service again, it's a platform and that platform can be used for any business process. So if you can just guide me as to how to go about it,
So I think वही recurring theme है actually, Yasser, that what you just said, I'll just repeat it back to you, right? I think everything was great until आपने last sentence कहा कि it can be used to automate any process. I think मेरा एक general rule बन गया over the years that I say कि anytime you find yourself using the word any, every, and all, we have a problem. How do we narrow that down? The market, it's about understanding where the customer needs, who the customer is. So the conversation needs to be around, let's narrow this down. Maybe it's targeting. And I'm just gonna throw some random numbers at you, random things at you, right? That this is it's all about optimizing the quote process for wholesalers in the US, central US. Very narrow all of a sudden. Same platform, just because you can do it doesn't mean you have to do it. The idea is to narrow this down to understand a niche where the customer feels that you understand and you are speaking to them rather than everybody and anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. In fact, incidentally, my first project was in insurance, and now I'm speaking to two insurance companies. So it seems that, insurance is one area which is open to these kind of automation, और जहाँ हमारी थोड़ी बहुत expertise भी बन गई है. But having said that, again, क्योंकि my platform is such that I have developed agents for specific tasks like email, documents, voice. Now, any process that requires these agents to be deployed, it can do that. But yeah, I mean, अगर आप कहें कि यार expertise in a certain industry, in a certain, तो वो I would say कि हाँ, क्योंकि किया ही अभी तक हमने इंश्योरेंस में और हमें इस वक्त रिस्पॉन्स ज़्यादा इंश्योरेंस से मिल रहा है. So maybe that's one area that we can focus on initially.
Absolutely, yeah. You need to double down. It's a matter of courage, honestly. And I've been there, right? Not easy. मगर अगर I guess इसकी जो classic example है, Facebook, when they started, right? If you have watched the movie, you heard Mark Zuckerberg's story. Obviously, it was a software platform that could have gone to any university, but they limited it to just Harvard. Then they only opened it to Harvard and Stanford. Then they only opened it. They kept opening schools and did not open it to the world, I think, for the first 6 years, and then they opened it to the rest of the world. Software-wise, we all understand it enough to know that there was nothing that changed. The only thing they added was one more domain that they will accept. But the difference lies, that was a strategy. And the strategy for you is exactly start with insurance. And yes, your software can do more, but that doesn't mean you have to talk about it. You can also do a lot of other things that you don't need to talk about, right? You focus on and you say, from a marketing standpoint, this is what we do, and target that exact customer.
Okay, can I connect with you then, obviously थोड़ा वो क्योंकि हम काफी टाइम हुआ, I was engaged with some projects in Dubai, but all अभी जो सब हुआ है उसके बाद, although I'm getting quite, अभी I'm going there again, but I would like to take up that conversation. I think I pinged you some time back also, but you probably didn't get my message. If you can take up
Sounds
that
like a plan.
conversation again.
Sure.
So I don't know whether I have your email, but on Facebook, I think on LinkedIn, I'm in touch with you. I'll send you a message, and then we can connect.
Sounds like a plan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining this valuable session. And thank you very much, Aater, for managing that much time. Um, I guess this session was much valuable and knowledgeable for everyone, especially on service industry. So I was actually got in touch with Arthur recently. So I just recently moved to Austin. So we are living in the same community. So so I actually got idea about his philosophy. So then I thought that why not we schedule some sort of a webinar with some topic which is actually valuable for everyone. Um, so thank you everyone for joining, and stay tuned for more uh, such topics and webinars. So I'll be there, and I'll be trying to get more topics on the table via startup community of representing startup community of Tasha itself. So thank you very much.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Atir. It was a pleasure having you with us, and I think the knowledge, the information was tremendous, and it will set a new direction for a lot of companies here in Pakistan, and like looking forward to connecting with you for more sessions. Thank you.